council, and I'm seeing trends, and they have very specific words. So I'm really interested in
Right. Oh, okay, 6 o'clock. I'm out this whole week. Perfect timing. Okay, hold on, before you start recording. It is 6 o'clock on the nose on January 22nd, and I call this meeting to order. This is meeting number 10. When I saw that, I actually did the calculation and realized, yeah, well, 10 times we've met. I'd like to do a round of introductions, and since most of our guests are over here, why don't we start with you?
Hi, Randy Havner. I'm administrative manager for code enforcement.
Thank you.
Jess Nyworth, supervisor of substance misuse prevention. Hi, Jessica Jacks, program manager for prevention.
Trevor Stevens, I'm the business manager for the Community Justice Department.
Great. Thanks.
Bill Kenny, Shoots County Commissioner.
Liz Latuszewski, acting chair.
Mary Flashway. Member.
Cap.
Yeah.
Good.
Be straight there.
Joe Brenich, the Shoots County Sheriff's Office, the business manager.
Jim McGiffin, Deschutes Basin Watermaster and member.
Anthony Ramos, detective with Deschutes County Sheriff's Office.
Dustin Miller, detective with Deschutes County Sheriff's Office.
Ben Patterson, Deschutes County Strategic Initiatives Manager, and the staff support for this.
The staff support extraordinaire.
Yeah.
Thank you for dinner tonight. Thank you for arranging our food.
The county arranged dinner, I should say.
Yeah, but somebody made the phone call, and the
You're welcome,
county
you're welcome.
wouldn't make the phone call. Okay. Second order of business is to approve the October 23rd, 2023 meeting minutes. Do I have a motion to approve? Or any changes or discussion?
I make a motion to approve.
Do we have a second? Thank you. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, great. We have our meeting minutes approved. Oh.
I will, so I'll put this all in now and then I'll check with our legal counsel tomorrow morning. The reason we're having this discussion is because we have a committee made up of 8 members and we have 4 members present, and we need clarification on if 4 members is a majority or if we need 5 members to constitute a majority. We didn't think we had many voting items today, most of it's presentations, but we do have, I think, 2 things now: the meeting minutes for approval, and then the second one is a recommendation to the board, which is the last item on there. So we will tentatively approve the minutes, I think, and then I will check, and we might have to bring the minutes back to the next meeting. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Okay, now we'd like to hear from those departments within the county that received some of the cannabis revenue tax dollars. And Trevor, you're the first.
Yes, thank you. So once again, my name is Trevor Stevens. I'm the business manager for the Community Justice Department. And we received funding specifically to look at training for counselors or behavioral health staff in terms of providing SUD services for youth, so substance use disorder services for youth that we are currently working with in Deschutes County. At this time, we have not actually spent any of the funds because, as I mentioned last time, we were working on a assessment, an internal assessment, to determine what level of services we needed to provide and how to launch those services. That assessment has been completed. We're actually in the pilot phase. We've just launched that, and that'll be launching the next couple of weeks, where we will be piloting SUD services with a very small group of individuals. So at that time, that's when we will bring the curriculum in and offer the training for those counselors. So that's when the funds will actually be spent. And it'll be used to help support that pilot program, because as part of that pilot program, will eventually be able to bill OHA and OHP. However, that is a 6 to 9 month process once the pilot has launched. So it'll take some time to get that up and running. So having some of these additional funds will help us with the books and other stuff for the youth that are in that program while that pilot program is running. So we anticipate starting to spend those funds within probably, I guess, right around March, April is where we'll see the major expenditures come in for that training. So any questions in terms of what that looks like for Deschutes County Community Justice?
Is there a time limit by when you need to spend the funds? Is it on a fiscal year basis?
I would defer to Jen on that. Does it need to be spent by the end of June?
I would have to check with our finance director, but we do have until June 30th of 2024 is when our fiscal year ends, and it sounds like you might be utilizing those funds in March and April.
Yeah, we don't anticipate not have them all used by then, but we can just double check on that just so you know for sure.
Okay, great, thank you. And the individuals that are doing the pilot program, how many are there?
So we don't have the numbers selected yet, but usually a pilot like that will probably run 4 to 7. It'll be a very small, just because it's the first time that we're launching SUD services. So we'll be using 2 clinicians. So our behavioral health supervisor will be the main clinician offering that, and she'll also utilize one of hers. And she's a KDAC 3, which in terms of certifications for SUD treatment, that's what we need in order to have someone running the program. So she's already has that certification, so we don't have to worry about that piece of it. So she'll be the main person, and she's actually the one that did the report as well. So we'll be utilizing her as the main point person for running that program.
Welcome. We have 4 on the. We have extra chairs we can pull out. So maybe we just do the meeting approval again.
Yeah.
Just to be on the safe side.
Oh, no.
There's also pizza in the back. And salad and plenty of snacks according to Jen. So just start eating it. So we're gonna keep discussing, and then when, when we're done with this, we'll reapprove the minutes. And the people that are going to be in the pilot, who are they?
They are youth on supervision with Deschutes County.
Okay, so,
And they will have a diagnosed SUD, so a substance use disorder. They'll either have something that's been diagnosed, or they'll have a condition of their supervision. So somebody from the court saying they must seek substance use disorder treatment. And so it'll be one of those two. Either that will be determined by staff once they come in and have an assessment done, or that'll be a requirement that comes with their conditions of their supervision for youth.
okay,
So it's not necessarily detention, it's just supervision.
No, yeah, it'll actually probably mostly be individuals that are not in detention. It'll be youth that are in our community on supervision. So, yeah.
The substance use, will it focus primarily on marijuana, or will it be all substances?
It'll be all substances, but for youth, marijuana and alcohol are the main ones that we see in terms of problems for the youth that we supervise.
okay. Any other questions? And if you don't get any additional funding, hopefully I can ask this question, from this or a recommendation from this organization to the Board of Commissioners, because we can't actually give you the money directly. It has to go through the budgeting committee. Is your program at risk if you don't get additional funds?
At this point, I don't believe so, because
Okay.
hopefully by the 6 to 9 months, we'll be able to start billing OHP and OHA for those services. And so
Right.
that will help sustain that moving forward.
Okay,
There are things that we can't bill for specifically through OHA or OHP, so it could help like offset some of the things that we couldn't traditionally bill for under those models, but I don't believe the program itself would be at risk.
okay. Okay. Anything else? Any other questions? If you don't mind, can we go back to our minutes? Have you had an opportunity to look at the minutes?
Briefly.
No, that's not the truth. Shall I read them to you? Do you, we've taken a vote. Would you like to make any changes, or do you have any questions about the minutes?
No.
Maybe have a motion to approve the minutes from the October 23rd meeting.
A motion.
Thank you. Do we have a second? Okay, thank you. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, yay! These were gonna be the revolving minutes that we were gonna have to talk about for the next 4 meetings. Okay. Angela.
Hi, Angie Abner again.
Angie.
Code enforcement. Just wanted to thank you guys for the funds that you gave us last year. We had a $20,000 contribution, and it's been such a neat year working with the detectives and the sheriff's office for marijuana code enforcement cases. We have a manager, we have a lead code enforcement specialist, and 2 additional staff. And how it works is detectives will call us, let us know a date that they're going to be going and doing their job. We will set aside staff to then meet them when they call and let us know a time appropriate for our staff to come in. and then investigate code enforcement issues. So marijuana is, their role. We do planning and septic, which is on site, and building violations, which has been oftentimes it's public health safety issues. One, we've seen some raw sewage on the ground. I did bring some photos I'll show you for building violations such as mechanical, electrical violations that we do through our code enforcement. And then if there's zoning issues with RV occupancy, unauthorized disposal for sewage, raw sewage. I'll give you guys these. This is just, I just did 5, just
That's
so
fine, we
you
can
can
share.
kind of see and share. Those are all violations that we would consider dangerous or fire. And I didn't bring the raw sewage. Appropriate to do that. And so we will be on site, from several hours to half a day, just investigating structures, wire, plumbing. And then also DEQ has been in coordination with environmental waste fund soil. So it's just been an awesome partnership. It's allowed us to prioritize these cases. We have a lot of cases right now for code enforcement that we take months to look at. Just due to staffing and what's required in investigations. So we have prioritized staff time due to your contribution of funds and then partnership with the sheriff's office. It's just been amazing. We had such a great experience with it. So thank you for that. And these cases do, so you know, they're all still open. We've had this fiscal year, 6 properties, 17 violations. So each property has multiple violations that we will go through potentially an administrative hearing process, depending on tracking down ownership. Sometimes there's tenant involvement, tenant landlord, things to go through for responsibility. So they take months of research, documentation. If they come into compliance, we'll close the case. If they don't, we'll go to an administrative hearing, which can take a while. The raw sewage on the ground, we got that cleaned up, so we didn't have to go to circuit court on that, but we could potentially if it's the environmental health.
Did the property owner clean that?
Yes.
Okay.
And then we do have an ongoing case with unauthorized disposal, or what we do is on the ground, but it is being disposed of in an illegal manner, but it wasn't public health and safety. So that will take not a circuit court circumstance, but an administrative hearing. So a couple times the owners have been unaware. Oftentimes the owners involved, but awesome partnership with the sheriff's office and great support to our staff.
Okay, great.
Are there fines and fees that come with being out of compliance, or is it more just to
There
check?
is. So we give them, we'll notify the owner of violations occurring on the property as owner, whether they're tenants or not. They still are responsible as property owner to bring the property into compliance. So we will give them a window to come into compliance. If they don't, then we go to what we call an administrative hearing process and can implement fines and fees based on violation. Up to the initial fines and fees, then the direction to come into compliance. And if they still don't come into compliance, we can go up to $500 a day until they find the approved.
But it's in it.
And with Senate Bill 326 that Kotek signed, are you familiar with that one? That is, well, let's see, requires the property owner for unlawful manufacture, production of marijuana to clean up the waste.
That one I'm not.
And if they continue not to clean it up, they could face imprisonment or $6,250 in fines.
Yeah, I am not familiar with this.
Okay. So I wonder, are you familiar with that, Commissioner Shane?
I remember the bill.
And like who within Deschutes County would actually enforce that? Yeah.
That's a good question. I mean, sometimes the state legislature passes a law that then affects our code.
Right.
You know, rural ADUs, state legislature
Yeah.
authorizes rural ADUs, then we tinker with our code to allow rural ADUs. In this case, I mean, are those are those conditions that are supposed to be enforced by law enforcement? Or are
Yes,
they supposed
that's
to be
what it-
enforced by,
This, I wonder, DEQ does come into play here and they do look at contaminants in soils, so I'm hearing about that. I can look into this. And get you-
I can touch a little bit on
Or maybe-
environmental stuff.
Okay. And I paraphrased from, the online bill, but it says the Water Resources Commission can impose the penalty for violation of using groundwater, or I suppose any sort of water. So you would be the ones to issue the lien or request imprisonment or fine.
for illegal use of water? I mean, there's.
Yeah,
Yeah, nothing outside of I don't know anything outside of our normal purview that we do on water usage, complaints and fines and things like that. I didn't know we went criminal on that, so.
apparently so. Apparently the state was, pretty concerned about it. Does anyone have questions for Angie? I don't want to.
I remember where this came from. This came from the hemp explosion. And that was a lot of people that had no idea that there was a hemp grow on their facility. They just had a tenant and then they wouldn't do anything about it. And so then they could continue to do this again and again and again. And so by making the landowner responsible, then they're going to be more incentivized to do a little bit more of a background check on what's going on with the property.
Right.
And
Okay.
across Oregon, it was big down in the southern portion of the state is where that really stemmed from.
Yeah. Sure.
Yeah.
We do, along those lines, do enforce the, like plastics in the ground for hemp grows under our solid waste code, but I'm not familiar with this bill, but
Okay.
I'll look into it.
Yeah.
This is like they harvest, they leave a bunch of trash. It just sits there.
Yeah.
And when, who was, Pete Kwiatkowski provided us a presentation when we were deciding how to allocate or make recommendations on how to allocate. We don't do the actual deciding. I want to be aware of that. And my understanding from his presentation is, the CDD needed money in order to clean up the sites. So is that still necessary, or are the landowners starting to?
So we can do both. We can, if they don't clean up sites, we can under our abatement code go in now and use that money to clean up sites.
And do you bill them?
We leave the property for that amount.
You do?
Oh, wow.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's what I want to hear.
And yes, absolutely. So in our abatement fund, we will use that money, clean up the land and then the property. So when it sells, or usually it's on a sale, that
Right.
money will come back to our program.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, accountability for owners.
And do you know how many liens you placed?
For marijuana, we haven't yet.
You haven't yet, okay.
But all of these 6 cases are still in the works.
Yeah.
So it could be a potential.
Okay. Any other questions?
I would just also say that the Senate bill that you were talking about, that's probably, I think if we ask county legal, county legal would probably tell us like how that actually gets implemented
In the county, okay.
I just pulled it up too, so it does, the last line maybe is referencing to what Angie was just saying. It authorizes local governments to take certain actions to abate public nuisance, including filing claim of lien against real property. So I'm not sure if that, again, would fall under CDD.
Yeah.
Well, that is what you're just talking
Yeah.
about, the abatement lien.
For water resources. I will look into.
Okay, yeah,
And it also allows Water Resources Commission to impose civil penalty for violations.
right,
So it looks like there's a two-track kind of
Right.
ability on local agencies to impose fees or liens.
right. So it may be worth asking the county's legal department, what's going on with this and how is it getting into our?
We do have one that is along the solid waste line that we're a cartel out on Johnson Ranch that we are working for cleaning up plastic, the greenhouse debris, all the things left in the soil. But the owner has been cooperating. It was a tenant issue where he wasn't aware of that, he says, but there has been expensive cleanup costs about it. doing. He has got some vouchers from, solid waste for the counties. So I think maybe it might be two-pronged approach that way.
Right.
The debris left on the ground, we would do under code enforcement for solid waste. And then, water part, I think would be different outside of us for water resources.
Yeah. I'm gonna say this from a personal standpoint. I would prefer not to see cannabis county tax revenue to be used for waste removal.
Yeah.
Especially if that property was leased to an individual. I don't care if the property owner knows or not. The property owner is ultimately responsible.
Absolutely.
So, when we first made that recommendation, yes, okay, let's kind of get a handle on it, but if there's other things your department is doing, I think that's great.
Yeah, right now it's been spent for that.
Yeah.
We do have separate now, since the approval, we have our abatement funding from solid waste that was approved.
Okay.
And then we do have an abatement fund that is separate from our general fund for code enforcement. So these funds could definitely be allocated for staff.
Right. Staff's expensive, staff's important, staff is
Investigation.
staff who makes the phone call,
Staff,
right?
phone call preparation and coordination with the sheriff's department.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
Good. Okay.
Yeah.
Great.
Code enforcement needs to investigate,
Right.
just like.
Yeah.
Just like
The sheriff's department.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, due process.
Great. Thank you very much. Okay. Jessica. Jacks from Health Services.
Something to share maybe eventually here. And I also brought copies of them. Gotta start here.
It's okay.
Thank you.
And Jess and I are both here, Jess is here to make sure I don't go too far astray. Keep the details correct, and then when I get lost in some of the social media, so I can start to lose track. So she's my backup. That more detailed. So thanks to you all for giving us the resources, services to produce and disseminate information to our community to encourage and improve parent dialogue with parent guardian dialogue with children. So that was the goal of the resources. And I want to give just wanted to just back up and remind you, if you had forgotten, that you originally gave us resources to develop the concepts, and we did that last year. This year is really about dissemination, but when we spoke with you last, we weren't able to give some of the data that we wanted to share on some of we didn't have it at that time, so wanted to back up and give you some of that data too. So as a reminder, we developed 4 total campaigns, all focused on starting the conversation, encouraging that dialogue. We did so in both English and Spanish, and this 2.3 million impressions is seen at some point, maybe not clicked on and opened, but 2.3 million impressions across the Deschutes County audience for the campaign total. And in subsequent slides, you'll see some other numbers that don't add up to 2.3 million, but that's because we did not include our, we have some data that's still coming in. So this picture that you're seeing is the snapshot of the website that also you helped to enhance when we launched these media campaigns, because our intent was not just to say, you should talk to your kids, but where might you go to have some additional resources? what, are there training opportunities? Is there, other information to share? So we were also able to enhance the website, and it was really successful in drawing new users. So we had 4,000 new English users and almost 3,000 Spanish users. So we're really excited about that.
Do they come back? Do you know? Or is it a one hit?
Good question. We don't track
They're
their
probably
IP
can't,
address,
yeah.
but my guess is probably
Coming back to the right. Okay.
So, the Shared Future Coalition is the website that we host with the county. It's a coalition of individuals who are all focused on not just cannabis, marijuana use, but alcohol and tobacco, vaping, etc. So this is really has great utility across the spectrum, but it is focused on adolescent substance misuse. And this lost my.
It wasn't the original, when Shared Coalition first came out, it was more focused on that 20 to whatever, wasn't it? It was all about alcohol.
It did have an iteration where it was 18 to 25, and that
Yeah.
was because of dollars that we had available. It forced us to focus on that particular age, but it is now.
No, I'm glad you changed it, because that's what I remember about it.
Yeah, it was always the desire. So this new website that we are driving people to has been seen 7 times as has increased 7 times the number of users to the site. So we're seeing some really great changes in that regard with this upgrade. We're going to show you 2 of the 4 video spots. This particular one will be running this year, but we first launched it in this time frame of March to June, and some of the data are reflected here. And we'll toggle over.
This is Dad with a conversation with his daughter.
Yes.
It's hilarious.
Apologies, because it is, when we ran it, tested it earlier, it was a little bit of a lag between words and actual but here we go.
Times have changed in Deschutes County.
When I was a kid, we didn't have Venmo. We just walked over to someone's house and handed them $10.
And when I was a kid doesn't really work when talking to your kids about marijuana today.
When I was a kid, TikTok was the sound a clock made.
With legalization, concentrates, and vaping, it's a whole new ballgame.
When I was a kid, social media was passing notes in class.
Download the MJ Talk Kit to learn what conversations do work to prevent teen marijuana use at sharedfuturecoalition.org.
Oh, that's very good. Love that one.
It's was pretty successful. We really were impressed and excited to see that the reach that it had and the numbers that you see there, but also the click-through rate was higher than the industry standard, and I'll speak a little bit more to that in a little bit. But this particular campaign we rolled out via cable TV, broadcast TV, streaming services, video pre-roll, web display, social media. So it was really very pervasive across the media platform.
Was it a local company that produced it? They did a great job.
Yeah, Zolo Media.
Oh, yeah. Wow.
It did do a great job. So next one to share is I shared with you last time that we had an opportunity with the Oregon Department of Transportation. They were excited about leveraging some dollars. So in collaboration, we developed this particular PSA.
I sat there.
Yeah. Okay. Phew. Effort.
Getting a driver's license is an exciting time for a teenager, and they're probably not thinking about the risks of being out on the road, especially the risk of mixing driving with alcohol or marijuana. Thankfully, there are plenty of things you can do to keep your kids safe, including talking to them early and often about the dangers of impaired driving, because you won't always get to be there riding shotgun. Learn how to start the conversation at sharedfuturecoalition.org.
It's a local dad and son.
Oh, really? Oh, that's
Yeah.
great.
Yeah, yeah. So the click-through rate, so essentially are people seeing it and actually clicking on it? I mentioned the industry standard is 70%, and we found this particular ad, it was 97% for Spanish viewers and 98% for English.
Wow.
viewers. So we're definitely hitting the mark in terms of our speaking to our audience and enticing and encouraging folks to follow through. So really some great return and on that. And we'll continue to be running the cycle of those total of 4 throughout the rest of this year through June. We do have a contract with Solo Media, and they have designed a kind of a marketing platform for us to really strategically look at our audience that we're trying to reach, parents and guardians, and make sure that we're utilizing the appropriate platforms and in a way that's going to reach those folks. So excited to do that. We'll have more data, of course, throughout the rest of this year. And we have more on the horizon. So that's the last slide. So as I just mentioned, we'll be running these we'll also be conducting an assessment. We really would like to understand our Spanish speaking audience a little bit more. How are these messages landing with them? We're seeing this positive return on our website through the Spanish speaking audience, but really are we engaging them in an effective way? So we're doing some research to understand that better with some other resources that we have, and that will help us to inform this media approach and also our other areas of work that we're working in, such as suicide prevention. So we've got that. And then I also wanted to leave you with last January, I had the great opportunity to present with 2 high school students before you, and we shared some of the 2020 data. We do now have 2022 data, and I just brought a snapshot of that for you. You can certainly go online and take a look at your leisure. But one caveat is the 2020 survey tool and the 2022 survey tool, they did not ask questions in the same manner. So it's so with, take a look at the data, but know that we can't exactly compare the two, but rather get some general trends of what's happening. So it's a little challenging in that regard, but did want to share that information.
Is that the one that the schools do?
Yeah, the state conducts it, but
I keep changing that language.
Are you gonna protect this?
They keep changing
Are
it.
you gonna protect this?
I am not, but there should be enough for you to take. Yeah.
Not like your response.
I can go run some off of the copier too.
So happy to take any questions and also again.
Well, thank you. Thank you. Huge kudos to Zolo and to you guys for creating those spots, because I mean, I do think it takes humor and kid focus. So, when a parent sees that, they gotta go, oh yeah, I mean, I am definitely talking parent talk to my kids instead of kid talk, right? So good for you. I mean, truly, I think that's.
There definitely is an art. That's one of the things that I think our team really does well, is balancing. We do have really important things to share with our community, and we want to make sure that the uptake is received. And unfortunately, we do see a lot of messaging that is done with good intention, but sometimes can unintentionally produce the wrong outcome. So we do spend a lot of time and real focus on that, and are proud of the work that comes with the results. And usually, you'll see kind of a very positive, hopeful vibe, very tangible. This is something that everybody can do, and that's the approach to work.
These numbers look good though. I mean, all things considered, the numbers look, I mean, because you're seeing the decreases. I mean, they're not huge, but in some areas they are, but I mean, you're still seeing decreases, which I think is impressive.
If you look at opiates.
Yeah.
With the market on trying to educate people on fentanyl, it's gone down significantly.
Yeah.
But is that in
Well,
part a product of how they ask
Yeah,
the questions?
if you're looking at the
The far
prescription
right.
opioid question for 2022, they didn't ask it that way in 2020. It was strictly prescription drug. And were you misusing any prescription drugs? So that some of the caveats between survey sets, but in general, what I'm seeing here is unfortunately, Deschutes County trends higher than the state. Love to see, but that's been historically the case. Would love to see that come down. But what I do see as well is thank you, the difference between is fairly consistent, and so I think it just speaks to the work that we have to do. Some of the things that we're doing, we'd love to do more of, and we don't have bad kids. We just have some unique behaviors that we can improve upon.
And if you had some additional funding, what would you do with it? Again, I mean, this is just an open question. Would there be more of spots? Is there in-person meetings? If you guys kind of brainstorm, and I know you can't do that if you're operating on a budget, right?
Yeah. Well, we do have, let's see, how do I answer that question? So there are a lot of ways to utilize resources depending on the amount. I'm always erring toward ensuring that we have staff to do the work. There are some programs that we only have available to certain areas of our county. So for example, Healthy Schools is only in our Ben Lapine schools, and not in sisters or resident school districts. That's something I would love to see change. It's resource dependent, and as well as some other things to have some buy-in there. But printing the marijuana targets, I mean, there's a cost to that. We won't have money to develop media campaigns. What we'll do is continue to cycle these, and that will get saturated pretty quickly. We'll need something fresh. So that could be another area to kind of keep on top of that. So it's a loaded question.
I know. It was unfair.
But I appreciate it. But I would guess my response is we can, depending on the amount and the parameters, is how I would think about it. It's one time, 1 year that puts my brain down one path.
Right. Sure.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
And it's been a number of years since I retired, so I'm not in the schools. What is that looking like in the schools as far as behavioral health staff? Is there behavioral health staff that's in the schools as well to make contact with these kids?
There are actually. So are you familiar? So the Bright program is new you've retired, and
Right.
all of our school districts have the benefit of that, and that's really intended to support kids, whether there is a substance or not. So it's not necessarily behavioral health, but it's emotional support for ensuring that they're set up for success if, math is challenging in a classroom setting, they can go somewhere else to do math. So, so that comes to mind. There also is, and you're familiar with this as well, but since there are more counselors in the school, not to the degree with which I think schools would like them. And school counselors often are very focused on academic counseling versus therapy counseling. We do have therapists through our school-based health centers through Deschutes County. So there are many avenues that kids are supported. The Healthy Schools program that I mentioned earlier is an opportunity for really public health to support. So we're really trying to get more upstream because we often target our resources and our energy because it takes so much on a treatment or intervention approach, and we miss the upfront education component and kind of so that's what we're really trying to do in the Healthy Schools program, and we're really excited about some of the change that we're seeing there.
We also run Upshift.
Yes.
In partnership with the schools, with all the school districts, which essentially is early intervention. So someone gets caught with a substance or either using it on campus or even actually self-report, hey, I'm looking to quit or I need some help. We're running through an early intervention program with a teacher, and they are routed straight through to if they need connection to treatment, they have connection, a form handoff there, or if they just need somebody to talk to and help them with their kind of early cessation efforts, or if they just say, okay, thanks, and then they come back again. And because as we know with anybody who quits, the first quit attempt isn't always successful. It takes usually 7 to 9 quit attempts for adults. And so adolescents can look pretty similar.
Wow. Which is as opposed to them just getting kicked out for 5 days or whatever.
Yes.
Yeah.
Instead of out of school.
Yeah.
And that,
Which is great.
That's
Keep
been
them in
a-
school. Yeah.
that's been a change that we've, public health has worked on with our area school districts just in the past 5 years so that we weren't suspending kids. I mean, sometimes there's real reasons to have safety reasons to have kids out of school, but adding that component of, just support, let's screen, where are you in your experimentation? Is it treatment focused, or hey, how do we direct that? So it's really exciting to see that shift, but it's been a huge paradigm shift for our schools.
Do you have any comments? You've got younger kids.
I do, yeah.
Here.
I have a 16-year-old, none of that ever came across my eyeballs. But.
See,
Yeah.
you haven't seen the ads.
No.
Oh my.
Well, are you on social? Now we need to
I
know.
I'm on social media, I watch, I don't watch that much TV.
Yeah,
Little TV.
I
mean, I'm not, I'm not upset that I didn't see it.
Yeah,
I'm just kind of like, what's the name?
Salad and salad.
Reminded me that we have one of our resources grants is a federal grant, and our grant officer for some reason was in the area, and she saw one of the ads and called us and just was like really impressed with the work we're doing. I know what to do. I'm not in social media. I've seen it a handful of times, but it's always been broadcast TV because I don't have.
So like KTVZ or.
Yeah.
CBS, whatever those.
So just watching a half hour of news.
Yeah.
As well, that's not,
Right.
maybe it's not,
Right.
not enough. Okay.
All right, thank you. Thanks very much.
To really reach a lot of people, so I'm not.
Yeah.
No, I wanna come back here next year and be like, I'll make solid spots, right?
Yeah, you're writing down his email or something. You're gonna send it, you're gonna push it to him instead of just having it come up. All right, Joe and Winston?
Yeah, I'll just say we received $92,000 this year, which paid for about 65% of one of our marijuana detectors. And I won't tell you which one in case you have a favorite. Or you can say it paid for about a third of each. And that amount is kind of arbitrary. It was half a detective, and then we received, I think, 17,000 more this year. So, so that's essentially what it is. And so that money was really invested into the work that Dustin's going to report on, and you'll see what they did. And I just want to, kind of set the stage historically that if these guys weren't marijuana detectives and they were just criminal detectives, they'd be paid for out of our rural tax district, which is a smaller tax district. And so this grant helps take them out of that and fund them to do this work, which they can do everywhere in the county. I'm not going to say, gee, if this went away, we couldn't afford it and Tony would have to go back and Dustin would be working by himself or vice versa. But in the short term, we would continue because we're committed to this. In the mid to long run, without this, it would cause us, to have to make decisions. What are we going to sacrifice to keep doing this? But I think most importantly, kind of like you're saying about keeping the message to the forefront, Jessica, I think what your investment buys is you become buyers of this result or owners of this result. And so it's not just the sheriff's office working, it's all of us working to get the results that they're getting. And to allow those of us in this room to appreciate what we're doing and go out to the community and say, yeah, we are committed to this and we see it. And so that's what I see the investment does, is help us keep all of us united and committed towards fighting illegal marijuana in the county. I'll just leave it at that.
Thank you.
Yeah, say the rest of what.
Yes,
sir.
And close.
Right there.
Did they make that any smaller?
Well, I wear glasses. I apparently need stronger ones.
All right, so this is, it's a little bit of a presentation, kind of what we've been dealing with over the last year. Each year is different, and I think probably 4 or 5 slides in here. I'm gonna have some statistics since 2018 when we started on some of the stuff that we've encountered, some of our plant counts and warrants and everything like that. So we're gonna go through. You're gonna see a rise in numbers. You're gonna see a lower set of numbers sometimes, and I'll kind of touch why some of those numbers are higher and lower. Investigations have changed a little bit. 2018, when we first started investigating, this was a whole new deal. Nobody knew how to investigate marijuana, quite how we were going to end up enforcing and doing it. We had a big, since 1991, we had a big hurdle to catch up and see what we're gonna do. So you're gonna see how things have slightly changed. We've had anywhere from 3 detectives on our marijuana team down to just me for about 2 years, and then now 2 again, and that's me and Tony. To start this off, Tony is somebody that we added here in the beginning of this year. He came from another agency, moved up here, and we added him on as a marijuana specific detective. And this is Anthony Ramos. You guys have probably met him a couple times. He's been to a couple of these meetings. I want to give him an opportunity real quick just to kind of explain a little bit of his history, where he came from, a little bit of his career in law enforcement and what he's been doing over in marijuana. So you want to go ahead and just cover some of that?
Yeah, Anthony Ramos, I go by Tony. Yeah,
originally from Ulster, California, if anyone knows that little town. I initially got hired at 21 years old with the Santa Cruz County Sheriff's Office in the state of California, and I was a patrol deputy there on the road for about 3.5 years. After working in California for the rough 3.5 years, family reasons decided to move up to Central Oregon and loved every second of it. Luckily, I had the opportunity to meet some fine folks at the Sheriff's Office that put a good word in for me so I could go through the hiring process and get through that. Coming up on 5 years now with the Sheriff's Office, and I was fortunate last year to take on the role of becoming a detective with Dustin Miller here with the marijuana team. So,
and a lot of you guys know my history. Some of the stuff in this you guys have seen before. I think I did a presentation a couple years ago. I've worked for the Sheriff's Office now I started as reserve 19 years ago and then started full time 17 years ago. I've had the ability to work patrol, but then also I worked 3 years for a regular code team doing regular drug investigations. That was back when marijuana was illegal then. And so I had the opportunity to do marijuana investigations back then also. Went back to the road for a while, did a bunch of training, then came back in this position in 2019, November 2019. So I've been here since 2019, and we've been just kind of pushing forward and kind of learning, and it's been a lot of fun, but it's been very challenging for a lot of things to just kind of learn how to investigate and put together a prosecutable case, make an impact in the community without necessarily arrests, right? So by social media or by media releases and educating the public as to the problems that it's causing and the potential problems that we can't talk about a little bit landowners and what is going to fall on the landowner's shoulders. So we've been trying to figure out how to do that. Over the past year, so actually for the last couple of years, the DA's office was had a grant that allowed us to start investigating environmental stuff. So like I was telling you earlier, that I can touch on that a little bit. It's a different duck. Like I don't know environmental crimes. I'm not a scientist. I don't understand soil samples. I don't understand bacteria. I don't understand those things. And right, so I don't know how to do it. And guess what? Neither does he. And real quick, I'm introduce. This is Jake. Jake Chandler works for the DA's office. He's an investigator from the DA's office, and he has been tasked with helping our marijuana team when it comes to some of these investigations. So legally, we had to figure out how are we going to do this because it's a large investigation working into just illegal grow, right? So you have to write your affidavit after your large investigation. You have to go before a judge, get it signed, go serve it. Well, we can't really just throw out there a blanket statement that there's going to be environmental crimes or environmental issues. So once we get on scene, we need to see what are we looking for, and is this something we can legally now take these samples because it's very specific in search warrants, what you seize, what you don't, what you analyze, and going forward and charging these crimes. So a couple of years ago, we started looking at going, what are we going to do? We had an environmental group. There was a private environmental group that was willing to come and help, and that was going to be paid through part of that grant with the DA's office. They came out to a handful of our search warrants. They have a busy schedule too. We got to them as many as we got them to as many as we can. We found that a lot of the environmental kind of stuff we're seeing or they're going to see is going to be on the large grows. Like I know our commissioners got an opportunity to go out to the alfalfa site, which was pretty disgusting. We didn't have the environmentalists at that time. And so what we've done is the DA's office has assigned Jake to kind of tag along with our investigation when he shows up. And it gives him the opportunity to write a standalone warrant to go and actually take environmental samples. Because if we end up, because we're not experts in the environmental portion, if we end up getting a search warrant suppressed for the investigation that we're doing because we didn't have the education and the knowledge or had the shoddy portion of the investigation by just throwing environmental stuff in there and saying that I'm an expert in it, we could lose the whole case.
Yeah.
So it's not worth it, right? So what he's been doing, he's been riding along with those guys and having those guys come out and really educate him so that he knows now, if I see this, this, and this, now we can look at going towards these environmental crimes if we need to. And if that search warrant gets thrown out, our standalone investigation still stands. So we won't lose that. So that grant is actually ran out this month, right? Yeah. So that grant ran out this month, and the DA's office is looking at re-upping to a new grant to be able to keep that process going. The other thing we had to figure out was prosecution. Our DAs here in this office don't understand environmental crimes. So we had to reach out to DOJ, and DOJ actually offered, yeah, they'll put on some trainings. They'll actually come down and co-chair during a trial if we need to. We haven't crossed that bridge. That's still something that we have been working on, trying to develop how we can do it legally and successfully. So that's something we have, it's going to be going forward in this next 24 year if they get that grant. Because we don't have the money to do it with the environmentalists and to fund an investigator through the DA's office, et cetera, et cetera.
Right.
The
How
other
much
thing
was
is-
that grant?
What's that?
How much was that grant? You know?
I couldn't tell you exactly how much I grant. You might have known.
That the larger one was,
It originally started with Cannabis.
yeah, 565,000 that was split between us and the DA.
The first one.
Yeah.
So regardless, we are now operating with a different grant for a lot of what we are looking forward to as far as our criminal investigations. And so what we've done now, especially since that grant did run out and we haven't got that play in place, exactly how we're going to do it, we started coupling a whole lot more with Oregon Water Resources and code enforcement. And we're getting a better return on our dollar at that point right now because they already have established entities to come out and investigate and handle violations and handle different things. So over this last year, just as she had mentioned earlier, we've had a great relationship with code enforcement this last year. It was awesome. I remember I first called you at the beginning of the year and I said, I got a big search warrant, 2 locations, whatever. She goes, how many do you need? 4? What? Are they? And it's been that way ever since. So it's actually worked out really well. They come out, they inspect the locations, some of those photos you guys saw. You're going to see some of those photos a little further in this slideshow also, some similar ones. Same with Oregon Water Resources. Those guys, a lot of them come over from Portland or Salem area, from the other side of the mountain, and they'll come over and be there for the search warrant. They come out, they walk on, they find the wellhead, they find out how much water is being used, and they find out what kind of violations may be occurring. So like any kind of crop that doesn't have a license considered a commercial crop, and then they can come in and on the back end and put something to restrict the flow of water on those wells. And then they can remediate it that way. That's more for Oregon Water Resources to talk about, and same with code, but I want to just lightly hit that we have coupled with them and we get great resources, or get great response out of them. Governor Kotek last year signed legislation increasing the penalties for marijuana production. Also increased the liability the homeowner has and the landowner has. You guys have already talked about that. I don't really need to talk about it too much more, but that is something that has helped us over this last year with that Senate bill that you guys were referring to. So that is something that we experienced this last year that helped us out. It also increased the penalties for sometimes it grows. And the charging for marijuana production is very, very frustrating. So you can have 4 plants, but if you have anything between 2 times the legal limit and 12 plants, like it's a misdemeanor for a little bit, then it's a felony. And then, okay, now if we go 32 times the legal limit, now it's a B felony. And so it is such a flow chart and it's so convoluted and so much of a headache, but they did increase some of the marijuana production penalties. If you get up over, essentially, it comes to anything over 128 plants. We don't do search warrants with anything less than 128 plants most of the time. Most everything we do has more than that. We have hit less than that if we've had to for community reasons or whatever. That house needed to be addressed, but that has helped. This year in 2020, or last year in 2023, Yamhill had a ruling on civil forfeiture. Civil forfeiture, and I tread lightly on this because I want people to know and people understand that we as cops don't do these investigations for money. We're not trying to take and earn money. That's not what we're doing. What we have found is with the penalties over the years being nothing but probation, slap on the hand, still allowed to grow in Oregon medical marijuana program after a conviction. Things like that where it's not fixing the problem. We have found that if we can hit their purse, so either put a lien or asset forfeit towards their property, so they take their means away, right? Maybe that, or vehicles being used or equipment being used in the grows, we take that away. Maybe the ovens that they're using for their labs, take that stuff away that are high dollar items, and it hits them harder so they just can't fire up the grow the next day when we leave and do that. So they had a ruling up in Yamhill, which it was a regular drug case. And essentially what they did is they kind of made the decision to go towards asset forfeiture after the criminal penalties had already been applied. So what that created was a double jeopardy investigation. And the ruling that they made essentially at that point was if you're going to move towards asset forfeiture, you need to make sure that you mirror those 2 investigations, criminal and civil. Therefore, what we are experiencing over this last year, it's been hard, it's been a challenge, and we haven't got all the answers yet, is now we're starting to investigate and go through the prosecution phase as civil and as criminal. And so the question arises at this time is, are we now going to be on the hook for their legal counsel if we lose?
If you fail, yeah.
Yep.
Uh-huh.
So now we're looking at our asset forfeiture and going, is this worth it?
Yeah.
If we end up acquiring $30,000 in legal fees, if we don't win the civil portion of it, right?
Yeah.
So now it's really making a difference and making us analyze how we are going to do this. And we don't want to put the county in a bad position for that, right? So that has been a big difference this last year in making decisions on what we lean for, what we try to go for Third, and what we do touch and what we don't touch, what we do prosecute, what we don't prosecute. It also makes a difference because now we're having to use DAs potentially in the same DA's office to prosecute each side, criminal and civil, right? So these are hurdles that we've gone through this last year, and it's slowed us down for some of our investigations because a lot of our large investigations this year went financial. And so instead of now we do our long investigation to kick the door down, now we get the plan, so we have enough to prosecute. Now we're writing subpoenas for bank accounts. We're analyzing bank accounts. We're analyzing where money's coming from, where it's going from, so that we can prove the civil end of it. So it's made it a completely different style of investigation. We're changing just as it had from the beginning. These are hurdles that we're coming across. We're finding maybe we need more money towards a financial analyst or maybe even a financial investigator that understands finances better than maybe myself. So these are some hurdles that we've had.
Well, and I mean, these are illegal grows. Would they use banks for their
They
money?
do.
They do?
They do.
They're that stupid. Sorry.
Or the banks with that too.
Yeah, I mean, I'm surprised.
Banks, if they see suspicious activity, they will fill out CTRs and they will fill out what they need to for that. Some banks, they'll run them under a fake business. Some of them we found that they're running a partially legit business, but yet filtering the money, laundering it,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
So it just opened up our investigations a little bit different this year.
Yeah, wow.
So that's kind of what we're seeing with that portion of it. ODA reduced hemp licenses. So Southern Oregon claimed a state of emergency because they were getting flooded. Southern Oregon has had a huge issue with a lot of the hemp stuff. Some of the things that they said essentially was, okay, if you were already in the hemp program, you were a good actor and you were doing it correctly and you have your pre-harvest testing, you then can get your hemp license the next year. If you have not done it, they put a moratorium on, they stopped it for this last year. Now, what that has done is that has really lit a fire in Oregon through ODA that people understand that, oh, okay, number one, if I do get an ODA hemp license, it might bring more attention to me. So might not operate under the mask of a fake hemp license. We also have over the last couple of years, since we've got those light labs, we're able to confirm that it's marijuana and not hemp. And people are hearing that too. Our permits have gone down over the last couple of years from close to 60 hemp permits in Deschutes County to this year 8. So
Wow.
that is,
You don't see it.
there's a couple things that there are a couple things out there that helps bring that down. Also, you'll see it in the next slide. It's going to be some of the statistics, but hemp was the new. I don't want to offend anybody from using a reference. The new snake oil, right? It was a new thing. Everybody wanted in. We're going to make a bunch of money. It was a gold rush. Everybody started putting hemp out. Then we had hail. Then we had
Oh, that's right.
freeze.
Oh, my God.
Then we had short grow seasons, and a lot of people lost their bank.
Yeah.
A lot of people lost their bank, and they don't want to go back. Well, then when that happened, all of your hay went through the roof, price wise. So now people are starting to go back to hay.
Right.
So that's another reason why those licenses have come down, and some people realize that they couldn't grow in this necessary environment. The most beneficial way to grow in this environment is through your hoop houses. And what that has done is that's brought down a lot of our hoop house grows. You guys have experienced them, you guys have seen them. I'm gonna show you a couple pictures of them, but we're seeing a lot less of them. And that's good because those hoop house cell investigations with 30, 40, 60, even Auburn Multi had 80 resources. Our search warrants, when it comes to tearing something down like that, could be anywhere from 50 to 60 people, or on a normal indoor grow is going to be closer to 12 people if I do with that. And what happens is those agencies that are helping us, whether it's Benton Police Department, Redmond Police Department, DEA, OSP, whoever it is, they're covering that overtime bill. So it's not just Deschutes County, but they're using a lot of overtime. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So that has made a difference. And with that said, I foresee in what we are seeing in 2023, At the beginning of 23, I remember being asked, hey, how many detectives do you need? Do you need 4 detectives? Do you, how big of a team? It's like, well, we kind of have to see what happens this year. Well, 23 did not reveal a lot of greenhouses, which was great, right? Because of those reasons I kind of just explained to you. So now we start focusing more towards indoor grows.
Building indoors.
Building indoors.
Okay.
And I'll show some photos either way. You're going to see what some indoor grows look like and what some outdoor grows look like. But indoor grows pose a different challenge. They're more concealed. A lot of people don't know about them. What we find is a lot of your OLCC grows, your legal grows, especially within the city limits, they're not running a lot of filters and they stink.
Yeah.
And there's no city ordinance saying you have to mitigate that odor. In Deschutes County, that there is an ordinance. You pay what, $50,000 for odor mitigation for his greenhouses. So we're not seeing that from the city to the county. Where the county does have it, the city doesn't necessarily. We're fielding calls such as that as a team. Indoor grows, illegal indoor grows are using those filters because they don't want any kind of police presence. They don't want people to know they're growing. So it makes them harder to find. So that also changes our investigations and how we investigate what we do in some of our numbers.
You just need some helicopter time after a fresh snow.
Yeah. Very true. So these are stats. I'm gonna go over some of these real quick. So 2018 all the way down to 23. The numbers that I'm gonna focus on primarily are gonna be your processed marijuana MJ pounds and your plants. And then also your first one, SW, that's your search warrants. So those are the number of search warrants we did. Last year we did 15 search warrants. So we were still pretty busy. The years of 21, half of 20 and 21 and 22, those numbers for plants being up at 53,000 and 43,000, those are your outdoor grows. That's alfalfa market. That's those huge grows where you're getting lots of plants. And
Hemp and hemp as well?
What's
Like
that?
hemp?
We didn't cut down hemp.
I know, but were some of those outdoor grows?
Masked as
Yeah.
hemp? Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, they are masked as hemp. So those 2 years were really hard.
Yeah.
Those, when it comes to labor and using all agencies and manpower, those were hard. So you can see that. Now, 2021 is when the hemp really took off for growing, but we didn't know how to investigate it. We didn't know how to deal with it. We couldn't prove it was hemp. We couldn't prove it was marijuana until we started getting those. And it was a little bit later that we got those light labs and we could prove it. So that's why your numbers have fluctuated. If you look at our numbers for 2023, when you go into plant numbers and you're going to pounds, they've gone down closer to what 2019 numbers are. And part of that is because those investigations that I just explained to you, how they've changed. We've gone indoor for a lot of them. A lot of them have gone financial. And I'm not making an excuse for that because those are great numbers regardless. But it makes you work harder for your numbers and we're not having such a problem. Now, looking at these particular stats, I want to work this job the rest of my career if I can. I love this job. I really do. But the goal is to work yourself out of the job. So some of these numbers we're seeing getting better because we have a team that is funded and that has the support of our community and that we're able to make an influence. Also our media. When we put out our social media, our press releases and things like that, people know there's a team here.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And the team, maybe 1, 2, 3 people, but we can make an impact. Right. Yeah. So that right there is what I believe has really lowered a lot of those numbers. And when somebody leaves Southern Oregon and wants to find another place in Oregon to grow, they're going to Google that county and they're going to look, say, okay, Deschutes has a team. They may go to a lesser fortunate county that doesn't, more rural, and do it. And we're seeing it. I don't want to mention specific counties, but we are seeing other counties that these outdoor greenhouse, hoop house style grows are popping up. So that's kind of what we were dealing with at first. The one on top, that was when we were just growing marijuana in hemp fields. Just straight out. And then the one on the left, you guys were out on that one. That was alfalfa. The one on the lower right, that's one we did this year. That's the only greenhouse one that we did this year. And that had 4 greenhouses. And it also had a grow inside the house. And that was a medical grow. We don't go after medical grows. We don't run medical grows. We don't do research on medical grows and try and get them in trouble. We found this grow and went, that's a lot more than a medical grow. So that's how we ended up with that grow. That right there was a horrible nightmare for wiring.
In the house or all of it?
In the house.
In the house.
So you can see the add-on on the back of the house, the little white building, that's over the septic tank.
Oh, lovely.
This one ended up, we called out county, ended up being city. City came out and red tagged this one because literally you could walk up to the wires and they were hot.
Oh,
Because they were overloading their boards and everything. So that's kind of the stuff that we are really appreciating now, having code enforcement come out and look at some of that stuff. We'll have some more pictures a little bit later.
And the entire house was a grow location, right? But
Yes,
was there,
somebody lived there. There was a house there, there was a kitchen there, but the house had been half converted from the garage to half the house to the add-on, all grow
oh,
inside.
okay.
So these are some of the indoor grows we're seeing. One on the top, that's probably one of the most beautiful grows I've ever done. Hydroponic, lots of money in that, but can you see the difference in our plant count numbers?
yeah.
That's part of the reason we're going indoor, right? The one on the right, that one had a handful with 150 plants, I think it was. But that was a shop converted, and you can see the rafters, there's insulation falling out of it. There was mites in there. This one was disgusting. There was a lot of water on the floor, black mold.
Do you guys come in with Tyvek suits and respirators?
Depends on how bad it is.
Oh, God.
Sometimes we do. You didn't mention the mold. We're gonna talk about mold a little bit later, but for instance, actually, I'll go to a picture. Okay, I'll just hit a couple concerns. These are some concerns that are coming up. We'll have a couple more pictures I'll hit a little bit later on the illegal growth. So the trash, obviously, and we're gonna have some photos of some trash stuff. That's some of our concerns we're still dealing with. Unsafe fertilizers, chemicals, gas and butane for labs, different things like that. The mold, and I'll just explain now. So we did do one where a guy couldn't afford humidifiers. And so his answer to putting humidity into his grow was to water his floors, which soaked up into the sheetrock, which created, and you'll see a wall of mold. And that kind of goes down to like, I can't say that all the black market stuff here is in the kids' hands. I can't say that. But is it easier for kids to get the hold of black market marijuana? Yeah, it is. We see them getting dispensary stuff too, and vape pens and everything else. I can't say exactly where it's going, but if we are putting this black market stuff into the hands of the kids, that's who's inhaling a lot of this.
Right.
They just don't care. No regulations. Yeah. BHO labs. I'll let him cover probably BHO labs and bubble hash. Here, butane honey oil, or yeah. So butane honey oil is just the way it's extracted. Firearms is something that we're coming across still. Water usage, which we've already kind of discussed lightly, and then unsafe electrical wiring. Outdoor living conditions, the tents, trailers, shanty houses, stuff like that, we're seeing more with the hoop houses. We're not seeing that with the indoor grows because people are usually establishing a house. But we are seeing a lot of dangerous facilities within those houses because of their wiring, because their plumbing has gone out, because they backed up their septic. The septic one that she had mentioned earlier was rough this year. It was a rough one. So the human trafficking portion, I'll hit just a little bit. Yeah.
Exactly what
I
was gonna ask that.
Yeah. So the human trafficking, we're seeing more of the human trafficking style of grows with the hoop houses, right? Because they are a farm style. You're not going to get locals that are going to go out and live in a hoop house and do that. That's where we were seeing a lot more of the human trafficking. JBRJ had a grant that went through, it was support for human trafficking. They got some Spanish speakers, they got some resources, some clothes, they got vouchers, different things that they need to put people up in hotels, trying to get them bus tickets away, different things like that. We haven't had to use them since then, since they established it, which is a bummer because they have established a lot of work into that, but they're now at our fingertips. They're also,
You're not having it.
what's that?
Yeah.
It's a good thing that you're not having it.
It's a good thing you're not having it. So, but they're at our fingertips, and their grant actually covers other crimes too that are criminal detectives as far as for human trafficking, and they do the sex side of it, right? As opposed to just for the marijuana stuff. So they're still a resource to us, and we have developed a relationship with them. So hopefully we don't have to use it. Like truly, hopefully we don't have to do it.
That's amazing that they did that. It's
Yeah.
great.
So trash, kind of discussed that up there in lab fertilizers and chemicals. That's the mold I'm talking about. Okay, this guy was so sick. And he says he smokes weed because of mold. And I said, did you see his breath? And he said, you didn't get it. I'm like, if you look at your grow, you're inhaling the problem that you need to leave for your problem. So, these two are honey lab or butane honey labs. The guns up in the upper right hand side, we're still seeing a lot of guns. The labs. If we go back to that stat that we were talking about, the statistics, we were seeing 6, 8, 3 PHO labs, right? This year we didn't see as many. We saw 3 BHO labs. We've got 3 BHO labs this year, but we also ran into something that's a little bit different, and it's called non-solvent bubble hash. And I'll let him explain. He actually got the first case. It was kind of cool. I'll kind of let you explain how we fell onto it. But we're seeing a lot more of these bubble hash labs because of the benefits and the lesser crimes. Well, and have explained.
All right.
Let me go up to, can I have to go back on this thing because I want to go to that picture.
You're going forward.
Yeah. Oh, now I'm gonna go back.
The other arrow.
You want to touch on kind of the investigation, how that came to our.
Yeah, just lightly, but explain kind of what the bubble hash is, the difference in the labs.
Yeah, so let me start by saying, when I went over to marijuana, I thought it was green and it grew in the ground, and then slowly but surely I realized people are smart in their own ways. I'm smart in my own ways. Everyone is smart at something. But the first thing we came across was TSA made a seizure of non-solvent bubble hash, and the first question I had was, well, what the heck is that? Smells like weed.
TSA, like at the airport?
At the airport, yeah. So someone was trying to fly out with this.
Oh, aren't you smart?
And
With sheets of it?
Yeah.
yeah,
There was 8.5 pounds.
8.5 pounds.
What was my adjective I used earlier?
But basically, this investigation ended up leading into an investigation that Miller had been looking into for about a year. And we ended up finalizing that investigation through this airport stop. But basically, just a Reader's Digest version of non-solvent bubble hash. It's almost like a BHO product, however, it's safer. It's safer to make. There's no gas involved. It's very natural way of making a high concentrated THC. So basically, in the photo to your left there, you can see that there is not just Doritos, but there's a large 55-gallon bucket there, and it has white, almost like cheesecloth strainers draped over it. So basically, like I said, Reader's Digest version it's called an ice bath. So basically, they'll fill up the bucket with a large amount of ice and water, and then they'll take their marijuana product, and just like BHO, the whole plant contains THC. So back in the day, they were throwing away the excess trimmings and the rest of the plant and just using the bud specifically. Now with BHO, non-solvent bubble hash, they're able to stir that mixture of the marijuana product, and basically it freezes the trichomes off of the bud, and then it filters through those straining bags, and then you can get your higher form of THC. And then basically they can press it into a rosin, and then those ovens back there, they'll bake it into a finer form of itself. Some of those little jars on the far left-hand corner, those are all filled with a bubble hash. It's almost like a buttery sugar.
Cookie batter.
Cookie batter.
Okay, so like you could squeeze it together like wet
malleable.
sand.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and it
I
reads.
thought the most sophisticated biotech in the county was happening at Lonza.
So this is a lot less expensive too than BHO, right?
We make both. It's much easier on the resource side. It's harder to make from a labor side, but it is much safer. There's no solvents, there's no pressure, there's no risk of explosion. It's a pure product.
And because of that, I think because we were, through our media releases, we're showing that we're finding BHO labs. And a BHO lab is a B film. It's a very steep
Right.
charge.
Oh, those things scare me.
Processing this, so manufacture of this, if it's like over 2 times the legal limit, it's an A misdemeanor, and if it's over that, it's a C felony. But it's not as bad of a penalty, right? But you see a lot of the same things. So like you see those ovens on the left, those are the same ovens that you use in a BHO lab. So what those ovens are used for is you're essentially taking material that you're either trying to bake off the water or you're trying to bake off the gases, right? And so then, but like he had mentioned, you can press it into a rosin, and that rosin looks like DAPS.
Yeah.
It's
It
almost
is
like
DAP. It is.
It is DAP.
Yeah.
So, and what we're seeing is more of these, but we're still seeing the BHO labs.
That's where the market's going. It's so funny because it's such an old technology. It's an old product, and BHO became so prevalent so quickly. And I think that there's actually more medicinal benefits to BHO if it's done right, because it captures more cannabinoids and terpenes than rosin does. But yeah, it's not expensive to set up. you can turn product that you grow that is not the best into something that's worth a little bit more money. And
We're seeing people do a lot of flower too, more than stem and shake.
we only do flower. So the way that we do it artisanally, where we have a whole process of we harvest, we're very careful with the buds. It's only the buds. It goes into a freezer bag. It gets frozen within 30 minutes. So we preserve where there's a lot of intention in it. If it's done right, it's a really high quality product. But you know, a lot of people will use moldy material and make this product because they can't sell it as bud. So you know, it can be used negatively. But it is a simple process, really. But it's also where the consumers are going. It's where the market itself is going.
Well,
So
it's more remarkable because you're not using butane to extract your THC.
And how do people consume it?
just like other dabs where
I'm not familiar with that.
so I guess the easiest way to say it, yeah, they smoke it. Yeah, they vaporize it.
Okay.
Yeah, so you can have a bong with an electronic vaporizing mechanism, or people probably seen the torches that they heat up the glass little container that then they put the extract in, and it's vaporized through a bong or a pipe. You just smoke it, inhale it, yeah.
Okay.
People also use it to make gummies too, so.
Yeah, we see it for gummies, but then also vape cartridges. We have not been getting a lot of cartridges lately this last year. So that's kind of good.
Yeah. It's been really interesting. We opened a store down in Chico, California, and the market in California is so much different than Oregon. Oregon's done a really good job because of this program, which you guys have done all over the state, really, and combating the traditional market, illegal market, where in California it's so prevalent. It's brutal. I mean, it's really hard to.
They've gone beyond the tipping point there, I think.
Well, I think it always was there. The problem is that they haven't set up a system like Oregon where there's unfortunately Oregon has too much of everything.
Yeah.
Well, at the beginning it was intended for interstate commerce and to capture the traditional market into a legal framework where people are consuming tested and safe products.
Mhm.
But what you see in California, you can see a lot of these like deserts where there aren't stores. So people aren't going to drive 45 minutes to go to a recreational store when their neighbor across the street has a grow in their backyard or this in their backyard.
Yeah.
So what they really need to do is lower the taxes. That's the number one thing they need to do. Our taxes are much lower than California's taxes. If you lower the taxes and you increase the retail side of the business, they can combat the traditional market, but they're not there. I mean, it's over 30% tax in California. So it's really hard to compete with people who don't have to have a tax.
Right, sure. Sure.
We go back to the BHO labs. The BHO is the way that you do it with butane. As you can see, this is how the butane, the BHO labs are stored.
Yeah.
That was a three-sided shed, which I was happy because at least it lets some air out, airflow. Because when the doors are shut, and if there's any leaking cylinders in there and butane's in there at a flash point, it's gone. So this is how we see it stored. But the problem with storing it this way, especially in the weathered elements, is all the seals crack, the bolts rust, right? And so then when it is time to assemble this machine, then you start getting leaks.
That's dangerous.
Yeah. The one on the bottom is a pretty cool one. That's a backpack extractor.
A mobile.
Yep, right there. That went in a backpack, and it has it has your material column, it has your collection vessel, it has everything you need. So, but that's kind of I'm not saying we're seeing less BHO labs because we still saw 3 this year.
Yeah.
And as I've explained, our numbers have gone down a little bit just because of our investigations. We're still seeing 3, but we also saw 3 non-solid bubble hash labs.
Mhm.
So we're seeing more of those, like what you said.
Those will increase.
Yeah.
But it is really to give you guys credit. I mean, it is talked about all over the United States, really. I mean, Oregon was this open place for people who didn't care about law to come and take advantage of it. Now it's not. So it's really.
We are still, a couple of our investigations last year came from North Carolina and Illinois. So
The people came from there and moved here.
moving here to get, because property was cheaper, right? Especially if you go down like the southern border of Deschutes County. Buy a pole barn, convert it, grow it, and still send it back to your state where you have a distribution hub.
Yep.
Where it's still illegal.
Yep.
So we've been working a lot of out-of-state cases. And some of those cases, they're not adjudicated, so I can't talk about specifically, but we're seeing family members coming down and growing multiple locations. So we did a search warrant this last summer. There was 5 locations. It It was, two in the Pine, three, two in the Pine, two in Bend. So, yeah, we're still seeing it. It's just the investigations have changed.
Yeah.
This is the electrical stuff, kind of what she brought some pictures like that. That one right there is, and there's an open, breaker box right on that shelf. You can see all the wire hoses on the ground, just exposed wires. All it takes is tripping and taking the whole thing down. This again, what we were talking about a little bit, these are your outdoor stuff concerns. The cool part about some of the code stuff that we were able to do this year and even part of the end of last year, I guess I say 23 and the end of 22. With code enforcement, we've been able to get them on a couple properties, one of which we just did in December. You guys have a case for how many years?
Yeah, two, I think.
Yeah.
Prior.
They've been open cases on these for years and they can't get on the property. So now, since we were able to get there with a legal reason, we bring them with us and they can settle a lot of their county
Very
issues.
good.
So that the partnerships, it's worked out in both
Cooperation.
ways.
Yeah, yeah.
I remember because when you guys came up to that last one, I'm not gonna mention location, but first thing he said to me, he says, there's a bathroom in that shop, right? I wanted to see it for you. I was like, there it is.
Like, I knew it.
Oh, that's great.
This, that outdoor bathroom there.
That's an outdoor bathroom.
Okay, that's
That's
a
the one
couple
that you
more
came out
over a hole.
Yeah.
Is that, okay.
Yeah.
That's
What-
the one that
What's
you
all
came
that
out with.
white stuff? Is that snow?
The sand.
And then look, there's a toilet paper dispenser.
That white stuff is just the one with sand. That was one that you came out now.
I didn't see that one.
Yeah. And then these were the outdoor kitchens that people were living and working in. But it acquires trailers, a lot of these outdoor ones, right? So then that's where the code enforcement comes in with people living in, sifting sewage and all that kind of stuff. But luckily, this year we did not experience these. And hopefully this is coming year 24. We will also keep a cap on those. Couple more trends. We already went over the bubble hash and the VHO thing a little bit. We explained that, the differences between the two, the penalties for getting caught, kind of why that's what's trending. Community complaints are fairly low, actually. So what we see is when we do a media release, we usually get 2 or 3 calls. And out of those 2 or 3 calls, maybe they're legal, maybe they're medical, right? Or maybe they aren't the case. I don't know yet. But usually we're only getting a couple calls in for tips onto the next investigation. Does that make sense? We're still using Cannabis. We're still getting anonymous tips through there. One of the things that it's a challenge for us is we wish the public would just put their name and phone number there. I'm not putting your name and phone number in an affidavit, but I need to talk to you because you see things and experience things that I want to know that maybe you don't think support. So that's a struggle that we're still dealing with is community involved.
And I mean, I think part of it is the people that are submitting a request for investigation. They don't want to be associated with it. They don't want the neighbor that they're
complaining about.
Yeah.
And if I can send a public forum, right? If I can send a message to anybody, we want your name and number so we can talk to you. I don't want to put your name and number into my investigation. Does that make sense?
On Cannabis?
We have the opportunity to be anonymous. Like your information can remain anonymous. So they go through on Cannabis and they fill out all their information.
Yeah.
They say, do you want your name to be mentioned, right? So they've already put their information in if we can get a hold of them, if they put their information in. They say, do you want to remain anonymous and do you want your information not to be used? Yes. So the problem is people call in and they go, oh, there's a record. No, probably is a record somewhere, but I'm gonna call you, I'm gonna interview you. Because now that I know who you are, I can say, can I come on your property?
Right.
So that I can
And look
at
what you're seeing.
Because
Yeah.
what I see is gonna get me further than what you see. So
Yeah.
just that communication with the public and educating people that they can truly remain anonymous. A lot of times, worst case scenario, let's say we ended up writing a search warrant, we went out there, something really bad happened. We got an officer involved shooting and lives were lost. And if it goes to a trial in that, you might get your name called in and you called, so I think my neighbor has marijuana grow. But you're looking at the severity of it, right? So we are not looking at diming people out. That's not what we want to do. That's not how we conduct business. That's not how we get repeat customers and how we get cooperation.
Right.
So
But you asked for their name and their phone number. Do they have to fill those fields out? They don't.
So maybe they're trying to get their neighbor in trouble, so
If they did,
Something,
maybe they
yeah.
wouldn't do it.
Yeah, I know.
we'll see.
Yeah.
Real quick, I just want to do a time check. We have 30 minutes left.
Yes.
I think Dustin still has more in his presentation, so we have just one last item, which is that memorandum, which we can also move to the next meeting. So I just wanted to put all those options on.
Thank
And
you.
I'm almost done. I think, unless we have one question. So investigating indoor and outdoor, I already explained to you guys early on the side of it, the challenge is both ways. The investigation slowed down a little bit, better concealment, so we'll see what it is there. So manpower for search warrants, I already went over that also. The outdoor ones are requiring a lot more people, the indoor ones are requiring less, which is great. Educating the public, right? Still ongoing. We are now, so we have discussed, and I was discussing with Joe even prior to this. I know our sheriff wanted to and had mentioned looking into sending a mailer to our community members to say that, you know, be cautious of who you let on your land, who you're renting from. These are the increased penalties that you could be held liable for, different things like that. Not as a fear tactic to try and scare people, but educate people that, hey, renting your property could get you potentially in trouble. You're responsible for what goes on your property, right? Communication is key. Is a mailer that? Mailers be very expensive. We discussed it. It's like, is it something that we, you know, getting more bang out of social media, maybe our Instagram or Facebook through Facebook or through the sheriff's office, so we do a blip on there that people get up on their social feeds. I don't know. We don't know. Still discussion, still talking about it. But right now what we are doing is when we do an investigation into a house, if the person is not the homeowner, or if the person is the homeowner, we will give them an innocent odor letter. And the innocent odor letter says essentially your house is used for criminal activity. You're now on notice and it needs to stop. And if it doesn't stop, we will look, you could be criminally or civilly liable, and we may look towards asset forfeiture towards. Because if I'm renting a house and I don't know what's going on because I live in Arizona, it's on a snowbird, and somebody's growing there and causing a problem, does that really mean that that guy in Arizona, that's a snowbird, owns a property, needs to get his property taken away for rent? No. But if I tell him, hey, your house is manufacturing a lot of weed and it's the whole thing's messed up, if we find out happening again, you need to make sure paying attention what's going on inside your house. We haven't followed through taking anything yet from an innocent owner yet, but we are educating, right? So there's some hurdles that we have been doing. Okay, so I already kind of went over this a little bit on the legal, the asset forfeiture stuff. It just changes our investigation. It's slowing down. But it is what
It's
it is.
really forensic financial investigation, you know, to try and track where all the money comes from and goes to. Yeah.
Very much so. This was the last slide. We already fast forwarded to it, so you guys can see those. That's kind of what we're seeing this year, as opposed to the prior years. Forecasting this year, how do you forecast the market? It's hard. Yeah. So we don't know what we're going to see, but we'll take it as it comes. And so we appreciate, I know Joe had already covered it. We appreciate the funding that you guys have given us for the sheriff's office. It helps us out a ton. We do know that our sheriff is committed to this. If we didn't have it, we didn't find a way, but it helps. And we thank you guys, especially with the increase last year.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Really, really good presentation.
You guys have any questions? They usually talk enough for people.
You were, when you were talking, when you were showing us the numbers for the last few years, it was almost like you were apologizing for how low the number was. But, I mean, you know, if that was a low number because it was out there and you weren't finding it, then you could apologize. But I mean, I think you're apologizing. You shouldn't apologize
Sound like
because,
you're apologizing. I'm not.
because I mean, that basically is a reflection that there's just a lot less working going on up there. And that's great news. That's
Our
really
job, our objective is to work ourselves out of the job, right?
Yeah.
It will always be there, but we'll always have a position because it will be there.
Yeah, but I mean, if it's at this level, then that's.
That's,
way better.
that's
Like
my
the
opinion.
reductions from 22 to 23 are just magnificent.
Yeah,
You
that's-
know,
that's
51
success in my
guns to,
opinion.
yeah, 51 guns to 13, 17,000
15,000 pounds
pounds
to
of,
900.
yeah. Wow,
That's big.
wow.
I think we're gonna start looking at, because the bubble hash thing was new.
Yeah.
So we fill out stats for our grant for BHO labs. For every lab we take down, we get a stat for that. We fill out a lab report for that. We don't do it for bubble hash because it's not dangerous, right? So they're not necessarily keeping that. We're gonna start developing a way to at least ledger them so that we know how many we're getting, so we can keep up with the trends. But this is kind of what we report in our grants, so that's kind of why this is structured this way.
Could, Jen, could you send this presentation out? Because I'd like to have these numbers.
Yeah,
Or
you can
can you
send it
just
to me and I can send it out.
Great.
Or I can just keep it hard.
Can I just have a copy it off?
Okay.
That's not my computer, so.
Okay, I'll figure it out.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Okay, before we move on to the next item, I just wanna
Yeah.
be mindful of our
I
staff
was just
time.
gonna say that.
Okay, you can say that.
You don't have to stay for these other parts, although there is an opportunity for public comment and you are members of the public as well. But if you'd like to leave, feel free to do so. Thank you. Okay. So we have been talking for the last couple of times about the Jackson County letter that they sent out to all of their county residents. You've seen that, haven't you? Yeah, okay. One of my action items on the minutes that we approved was to come up with a little PSA thing. And I also wrote a draft memorandum to the Board of Commissioners on this education process. Like, you know, landowners are in fact responsible for what goes on their land, even if they claim no knowledge of an illegal road. So there's two things. One is my little draft for a PSA, and I am not solo media, which is why I wanted to know who did that, and maybe we can hire them to do something if in fact the commissioners want to do that. But you know, how else do we get the word out that landowners are responsible? Is it a letter to everybody in the county that owns 2+ acres of land that could potentially have an illegal grow? Social media, you mentioned some of those, radio and TV ads, and maybe reminders at all Board of Commissioner meetings that says, just a reminder, if there's any illegal grows going on on your property, you are ultimately responsible. Though I'm a part of this, Senate Bill 326 was not on my radar. And, you know, not that I necessarily need to know about that, but maybe we need to publicize it more within the county. That in fact, the legislation in the state of Oregon has made this law. So opening it up to conversation and comments, and
I think starting with our local kind of news media, whether it's the source, it's the bulletin, whatever, start getting that in there, so the conversation can get started. Because people don't know this.
And is that with articles?
It could be
Or
articles, it could
advertisements?
be a short little quarter ad, which isn't that overly expensive.
Right.
Interviews with the local TV stations to start getting this on people's radar.
I agree. I mean, we could announce this every single Board of Commissioners meeting, and the number of people who would become aware because of that.
Yes.
Unless it's a hot topic.
But working with the media, I mean, I don't know, like, the boundaries of kind of what is, what you need to keep, private or secret, based on ongoing investigations and, people's legal rights to privacy and things like that. But I mean, it sure seems like, like you guys were talking about some of the code cases. One of the first things that came to mind was, what we really need is a couple, like basically to make examples of a couple of people, very public examples, and that'll get a lot of landowners to pay attention, to be mindful of what's happening on their property. So like the best way to, kind of make a public example of what you shouldn't do is to get it on TV news.
And it would have to be a case that has already been adjudicated, right?
Yeah.
With a criminal.
Yeah, that's a big
outcome.
number, and because that gets her teeth, not me teeth.
Yeah.
Necessarily, does that make sense?
Yeah, no, I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
And I mean, or you could wait until the next one and kind of, do a like, there's the whole, like, we busted an illegal grow story, but I mean, to like emphasize that subtitle. And we busted this illegal grow, this is what happens to landowners who
Right.
let people do stuff on their property. And, you know, aren't responsible about it.
And I think it's a very fragile topic because, you want to publicly humiliate people. You don't want to, I'm not a huge fan of fear mongering. It is something that can happen, right? But like when we do our press releases, it's like, we were working towards do this, got X amount of this. We aren't bashing the person, right? We're not really going after the person or the individual or anything. We're showing what is going on in the community. To come back on that even is, who's going to be responsible for being the big scary guy saying that you could lose this, right? So is it going, you know, is that going to be our county and our board of county commissioners that will say we want to send this out, right? Is that going to be our sheriff who wants to put his foot down and say, I'm not speaking for the sheriff, I'm saying,
Right.
is that going to be,
Right.
is this going to be county code enforcement that's going to say, we're taking a big stand? Now, down in Southern Oregon, you have fire marshals, you got their code enforcement. You have people down there that are so sick of it that they don't care what they say.
Right.
And that's
Right.
how they're getting results. Now,
Right.
so that is who leads that and who is responsible for it, right? To not be the big bad man in the room, but yet educate people, right? And so by using an example, and like you said, you have to do one to have the example, but how far do you want to go into publicly exhausting everything you did, right?
Maybe there's a bigger window of it too, not necessarily like just hammering on marijuana grows or whatever, but just the code, the kinds of code things that are gonna get you in trouble, period. So you've got too many trailers on your property with not enough septic. Do you know what you can and can't do, what you're responsible for on your property? I mean, it could be more open-ended that way, I think.
Yeah, I really like the public education component of it, and we've been talking about that internally too, for how can we communicate to the public, because often people don't know. So we look at it from a little bit of a fractured lens. So there's the marijuana side of it, and then there's the code enforcement side for solid waste, or RPF zoning violations, building violations, on-site violations. And oftentimes they're not aware that the code exists, and we really try to approach it for voluntary compliance. So we want the owners to come into compliance while providing education. And then the enforcement part comes secondary if they aren't willing to come into compliance. But it's kind of two-pronged approach to public education of what you are responsible for on your property, what code exists, what you are responsible for, working on those parameters, and then secondary, what enforcement will come there out of it. And we do have pretty strict due process on what we could come, so we couldn't just come in with marijuana site stay and just come in with full-fledged abatement. We have to go through the process so we can get, people have rights through the process. So solid waste would be for us to come in on an abatement order. We have to get a justice court warrant to do that. We can go get summary abatement if there is there's a fire safety issue, but or sewage on the ground, we would put a circuit court for that. But there is process that takes time, but I love that public education component of it, because
It's sort of like what the city's done when we got hammered with all the snow, bringing it to everybody's attention of like, you're responsible for shoveling your driveway or shoveling your sidewalk. Because people didn't know, oh, I gotta get out there and do that.
Yeah, and for the majority, I mean, people want to comply, they want to understand the rules, and there's the outliers where we have to bring enforcement. This is a little different, because it's illegal out of the gates, but oftentimes the homeowners are not the ones that were aware of that, so. Really individual cases, the way that we.
Well, and I want to defer to you.
One other thought was, you know, if for example, the guy being told us, this is typically new property owners, you know, like somebody just bought this, you know, then you know, a good ally in this could be realtors, actually. The
Or
realtors.
escrow officers. The you know, the final, this is when the property changes hands, right?
Yeah. But I mean, you know, like the Realtors Association, their local chapter, they do. Are you?
I am a realtor.
Okay, so I mean, you know, they're doing, you know, they have regular gatherings and educational stuff, and you know, you could do really good presentation
I,
to them, and then.
I teach realtor classes on water law for their CE credits.
Yeah.
And I have 3 or 4 slides that I have in there about what you can and cannot do with marijuana property. And I do that. I do 20 realtor classes a year.
So
It might even be worthwhile to do with CE credit. I don't know,
This would be like you could do a super specific one
just on
narrow
marijuana,
this down.
illegal grows. I mean, I think that could be really interesting for a lot of realtors.
On the angle that you're going, I like that because I've done 12 raid notice of violations that I've sent out. Every time I send to the tax records and every time they go, hey, I'm just renting the place. I have no idea what's going on. I'm like, no idea what the 800 hoses crossing your driveway. But they do that every time. It's not, no, send it to him.
Right.
Nope, you're the homeowner. We
Yeah.
send it to you.
Yeah, yeah. So, part of, I think, this discussion also has to be if there is a financial element to it. If there's ads in newspapers or designing a PSA, should we recommend to allocate some of these cannabis tax dollars to that communication process and, kind of rejigger where the money goes for fiscal year 24-25?
I think that PSA is probably gonna have to be pretty heavily hinged on our county council.
Yeah.
Because they need to read through and interpret Senate Bill 326, and they need to depict exactly what it means so that we're not essentially threatening something that we can't do.
Mm-hmm.
So it's probably gonna have to be drafted by our legal, would be my guess.
And then spiffied up by Solo.
Lawyers or.
I've had a couple that are pretty outrageous.
So how should we conclude this conversation?
I think we need to find out.
326.
I think we need to find that out first.
Okay.
I have that as a take.
Okay. All right. So we can come back to this maybe next meeting?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and next meeting too, we were gonna do the budget discussion. I think that's next on our agenda. to
Yes.
talk about it, but it kind of could be a nice segue to next meeting.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
If I could just say about the budget, that you would, I agree that I think you would want to put it into your budget. Your proposed
Recommendations. Yes.
I mean, when someone was just saying, it was just like, yeah, like, more education about what code enforcement, does and, what's a code violation. The first thing that popped into my mind was that we do widespread education about code compliance in the community, and that there's gonna be so many more calls. And these guys, they're, the way, like, it's my opinion, the way we fund code compliance in the county is really stupid. And in my opinion, it results in Andy always having inadequate capacity.
Yeah.
And so when she said, like those $20,000 allows us to prioritize these cases when they come in. I mean, there are a lot of code complaints that take a long time to get to in the first place, and then take a long time to resolve. And it's not code's fault. It's they have insufficient capacity for what what the community expects them to do.
With a laborious process to give community members that right to try and resolve.
And it's all tied to just like we fund our community development department in a stupid way.
Okay, good. Glad you like that word too.
You're the county commissioner. You can say
I'm one.
One of three. And I thought it should have been 5. Are there any members of the public?
No.
Okay, and does anybody, would you like to say?
I don't think so.
Okay.
Unless you want me to introduce myself, but that's.
Please do.
Actually, he's got a long career in law enforcement too. You want to hear what he has to say?
Yeah.
Oh, man. Now I'm like nervous. Yeah, I started my law enforcement career in Las Vegas as a police officer there for about 7.5 years. And then I lateraled up here to the police department. I was there for just under 6 years. And then I switched over to the DA's office almost 3 years ago now as a DA investigator. I try to tell people that I'm not the typical millennial, like doing a job for 7 years and flip-flopping every 7 years. So I'm hoping that I can prove everybody wrong and I stay here for a long time, which I really enjoy it. So we'll see.
Great.
I'm only at 3 years, so I still
4 more to go.
I have 4 more to go. We'll see what happens. Yeah.
Awesome, thank you, thank you. All right, so next steps is our next meeting, tentatively scheduled for April 15th. I will be out of the country on that day. You can continue on without me. Oh, geez, okay. That's my rock player. That's the dog talking. How do I stop that before? Oh, I know, I got you. That's my. That was very embarrassing. April 15th, it's also tax day.
Right.
Should we,
Tax day's a headache down here, right? Is there a lot of people that come in here physically throughout the day?
Yeah,
Throughout the day?
not at 69.
Yeah, you're cleaning up towards the end of the day, it was pretty stressful day.
I mean, a federal tax day, I mean,
Yeah.
federal and state tax day, that doesn't
Oh,
affect,
No, you're right.
that doesn't affect these.
Property
wages.
taxes.
Property
So
tax.
Liz, you're out of town just that week,
well, the week prior as well.
so potentially the 22nd.
22nd is what works for me, or April 1st, but that's Easter Monday. I don't know if that matters to anybody.
That's April Fool's Day.
Oh, no, that might be kind of fun. Again, like 15th, you guys can do it without me, I'm sure. Someone else,
I'm going 22nd to move it to. Same.
22nd, okay, let's do 22nd. And at that meeting, we are going to, 22nd. Yeah. Potential agenda topics, recommendation of the allocation. Yeah.
Okay, I just want to throw this out here. I don't know if it's appropriate for this group or not, but with the legalization of psilocybin, I don't know if that's going to become an issue with our young people, how accessible that is or anything else. And so I don't know if this is, I feel like we need to have it on our radar, but I don't know if there's anything that we can address.
It's not within our charter of,
Okay.
for the cast members to specifically address. So that's what I would put out there on that.
I will tell you that I have worked those investigations, even spoke with commissioners when it came to that last code. They're harder to investigate. And they're probably gonna fall in my lap because of the style of investigation. I say my lap, our lap, our team's lap. Because of the style of investigation resources and knowledge on how to investigate those things. We have done one, we did one in Terrebonne, it was very, very large, and I foresee it coming in the future, riding the same wave that marijuana did at Measure 91. A little bit different because it's not legal, right? It's supposed to be administered in a clinic under the.
Right.
It's not a retail sale.
Not recreational. Yeah.
Right.
But it is going to pose county problems with soil, with drought in soil, with water, with fungus, with spores from the mushrooms. There's a lot of things that are going to cause a problem. And it's probably not on ours, but it's obviously it's not the focus of this group.
Right.
So I don't know that I would even bring it up.
Okay.
Are there taxes collected on licensed?
There will be, they finally put their manual together at the beginning of last year.
So they need a PAC,
Oh, well,
psilocybin advisory panel.
Yeah.
Probably also need a new acronym.
Well, we're also the only county in the state that has it.
Yeah,
Cannabis advisory panel, because.
Yeah, that's true.
Because it was allowed, then it wasn't allowed, then it was allowed.
Well, when it comes to psilocybin production, we in one other county, are the only two that moved to allow it for manufacturing.
Oh, wow.
So we are going to experience, right? Is Douglas and Deschutes, is that the only two? Is that correct?
No, that's,
I bet.
no, there's.
I'm talking for manufacturing, not for,
In the unincorporated county.
I believe we were one of two. I could be wrong, but my understanding was only two counties, or I thought it was Douglas and Deschutes that allowed for manufacturing.
Yeah, not just the treatment.
Not every-
Not just the treatment.
I'm Googling it, things like,
I'm sure it's more, but I could be.
And I could be wrong there too, because it's not something to follow, but my understanding was when it went to vote, the night that it went to vote, it came out that Deschutes County does.
The footprint of
That doesn't
that
make any sense.
grow is much smaller too, so I think those,
So what?
the footprint of a grow.
Closet. A
Yeah,
closet.
I mean, you don't need much
Well-
space, so.
The one that I did was 1,900 square feet.
A lot of mushrooms.
257 monotubs.
Wow.
I'd say most of the marijuana grows that we dismantled last year, a majority of them had processed. Psilocybin.
Oh, really?
Not being grown, but I mean,
Well, we did come across monotubs, and a couple of them. So people are growing like a monotub for themselves.
Yeah.
But yeah, for mass production, yeah, it was 257 totes.
That's a lot.
Wow, crazy. Okay, so for our next meeting, do we want presentations from the departments that we may or may request, budget allocations from us? Budget allocation recommendations, because in the past years, you have extended invitations to some of these departments, right?
And the next meeting will be your last chance to provide those recommendations based off of our budget cycle
Right,
to present to recommendations to the board on how you want tax revenue funds to go to. So
right, so we've got.
last year around, and for the April meeting, that's what we did. We invited the departments who wanted to request any funds, come present, and then you deliberated and decided how much to give. So,
And will we see that the financial figures? for that?
yeah, Eric Rob will come, he already has on his radar screen to come and forecast what he thinks the revenue will be for that.
Okay.
It could probably be pretty close to the same as what we had this year, right?
Yeah.
I would assume.
It hasn't gone up for.
No, anything.
It went down substantially.
And I believe the previous 2 years, you did ask for department heads to come and present to us.
Yes, and they did the April meeting last
And,
year.
right, and have we heard of anybody else wanting to come?
No, and the invitation was given out to all department heads, so it was really the 4 departments that consistently.
So do we want to put the invitation out to other department heads to see if anybody else wants?
Just for clarification, we did that last year as well. We gave to all departments.
Right, I
Yeah,
know, but,
okay.
right, so what I'm asking is, should we do that again this year? Recognizing that the previous 2 years, we've had the same 4 departments.
You
kind
never know.
well,
Yeah, you never know.
okay, that's a you never know, might be worth asking. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, we could list it out to them again. I know one thing that is a place where we're constantly looking for money is our DA's office also, for training, is that they don't have the same training budget to train. Not everybody up to speed. We as, the county and some of the marijuana stuff we've done, we've helped bring some of our prosecutors to some drug, conferences that have brought them up to speed for prosecution, different things like that, which has helped. I know that, Jake's looking for, education and training on certain items too, which relates directly to marijuana and the environmental side. So if we wanted to discuss maybe some money utilized for training for maybe some of our DPAs or investigators to the DA's office, that might be an opportunity
Okay,
to give a small portion.
and what do you think? Should we invite?
Yeah, I
Put it
mean,
out to all
instead of getting the
departments?
same players every time, why not open it up? to
Okay, all right,
Fresh ideas.
okay.
Did also want to say, Dustin, when you were talking about the environmental scientists you had working with you.
Yeah.
We actually have a lot of that technical expertise in the county in various places. I mean, there's people in health services who, understand all about air quality and toxic chemicals and stuff like that. There are people Andy's colleague, Todd Cleveland, he's like, like soil contamination expert, right? Groundwater contamination expert. So I mean, if that is a piece, if you need continuing environmental scientists kind of support, and you're not sure if you're going to be able to keep the folks that you're using right now, that you might be able to find some of that inside the county and other places.
Okay, I didn't think about that. I don't know if you guys just had a DPI meeting, did you guys discuss our locals?
We have not discussed any local people within the county.
I think it was contracted.
The contract people we have. I mean, some of it, like maybe if it rises to the level of, things that the Department of Environmental Quality would be concerned about, you might be able to take them for some capacity as well.
I think that's good. Thank you.
We do have
We can discuss that, but
Yeah.
I can send you contact information under our public health, that's kind of the same thing, under our public health department, we have a whole environmental department that basically covers a lot of this stuff that you're talking about.
Cool.
I can share that contact.
Thank you.
Okay, anything else? A meeting is officially up. How do I end the meeting?
Motion to.
Motion to end the meeting.
Before you do that, real
Okay.
quick, so I just want, the one thing that I have for the next meeting is invite all departments to come and give a 10-minute presentation before
Yes.
you're requesting specific amount of funds. Do you want me to also add an action item for your PSA campaign, or do you want to just include that in your budget allocations discussion?
Well, let's see what the county legal said.
The determination on it.
Yeah.
26, okay.
Yeah,
I'll send an email out to the group.
okay,
When I get
and then we
feedback
can
on that.
decide if we want to put that on the agenda. Okay.
We decided for the 22nd.
Yes, 6 o'clock.
Thank you.
Are you coming?
I may come, I'll do it, Peter. Directs me to do it.
If you're requesting.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, a meeting is officially over.
Motion to adjourn.
Thank you. Motion to adjourn. Do I hear a second? All, any opposed? No, I'm just.
Okay, Angie,
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh.
How are you doing?
Oh, we definitely saw it.
Yeah. Driving.
See you guys later.
Good.